Hi, welcome back. This is part 2. We're looking at identity theft, then we're going to finish up with investment scams. Identity theft is used to describe those circumstances when someone uses another person's name, address, social security number, bank credit card account number, or other identifying information to commit fraud or other crimes. A simple identity theft, maybe they actually steal your credit card account. Then they use that credit card to go shopping. It is very prevalent in Australia. According to the Australian Bureau of Statistics, around 1 in 20 Australians aged 15 or over experienced identity theft in 2020-2021. The financial impact of identity crime in Australia is estimated to be around $3.1 billion per year. In terms of the trends, identity theft incidents have been on the rise in recent years, with a 56% increase in reported cases from 2015 to 2020. The COVID-19 pandemic has also contributed to an increase in identity theft, with fraudsters taken advantage of the shift to online activities. As I said earlier, the common methods are to steal your personal information, such as driver's license, passports, financial documents. The affected sectors are the financial services. They are prime target for identity thieves, with fraud being a significant issue for banks and other financial institutions. Government agencies and healthcare providers also face challenges in protecting sensitive personal data. So there is a cybersecurity element to identity theft, but there's also that personal education element to protect your own identity and your documents at all times, especially with revealing information online to people whom you don't know. Let's have a look at the top 10 instances of identity theft in Australia. As early as 2017, or not so long ago, there was the Equifax data breach. And you can see that a number of victims, 1.5 million, followed by the Marriott Hotel data breach, the ANU cyber attack, which actually affected the data of 19 years worth of students' data and staff. And more recently, we have the Optus data breach, which was in the headlines less than 18 months ago. Telecommunications, over 10 million victims' data were accessed. The estimated losses were 100 million Australian dollars. And more recently, still in 2022, the Medibank cyber attack, where thieves stole data from over 9.7 million current and former customers. Wow. So you can see that identity theft has a high association with cybersecurity risk, with the ability of thieves and fraudsters to hack into company systems. The textbook in chapter 15 talk about the identity theft cycle. I won't go into it in too much detail, but just to be aware, there are different stages, and that is the discovery, where you gain information and verify information. And basically, all of the data breaches I mentioned in the previous slide are in this stage 1, where they're getting your data by stealing from Medicare, they're getting your data by stealing from Optus, and then they might on-sell that data to another fraudster that will go into stage 2 and take action, or stage 3, where they actually start to use that data to steal money and spend money. So stage 1 is really the gaining information, verifying of that information. Stage 2, accumulating documentation and cover-up actions. And stage 3 are going through small thefts, using your credit card information to find out if it is working and still active. Second dimensional actions are larger thefts often involving personal interaction without much chance of getting caught. And finally, the largest thefts committed after the perpetrators have confidence that their schemes are working, where they will actually purchase even larger items. Hopefully by then your credit card has been stopped, but not everyone is aware that their data may have been stolen, or their credit card information or other information is in the hands of fraudsters. So just summarizing what the fraudsters can do with your data. First of all, they're going to convert personal information into financial gain. So if they've got millions of customers' data, they may not be the ones that actually are using that to go shopping with your credit card. They may sell that to another fraudster that gives the hacking fraudster $20 or $25 per customer data. And then the hacker, they have made their money. Then the fraudster that has purchased that information will go to the links associated with this slide, where the fraudster will convert this personal information into financial gain. And it may be that they do use that information for buying large ticket items, but there are many other ways of using your personal data for accessing finance, for accessing banking activities, telecommunication, credit activities, counterfeit financial instruments, criminal impersonation, and buying large ticket items, as I said at the outset. So they don't always have to use your personal information to go shopping. They could use that to do something else. So what do you do if you are a fraudster and you cannot go and buy lots of data from a hacker who has just stolen 1 million customer bits of information? Then you do the following. You might go and pose as a legitimate employee, government official, or representative in which the victim conducts business. Or you might do shoulder surfing, watching or listening as the victim enters a credit card number. Or you might go dumpster diving. Remember, bins that have rubbish on the public street are publicly accessible. So make sure that you have a shredder and you shred everything before you put sensitive documents into your rubbish. Finally, skimming. They might use a storage device to gain access to valuable information. And in the past, skimming has been known to operate in restaurants. Maybe you have gone on holiday to Bangkok and then you found that your card has been skimmed, and weeks later there's been these purchases made on your credit card that you have to ring up the financial institution and to cancel. Right? That's an example of skimming. ATM machines, gas pumps, and stores. So this is the approach that a fraudster will take if they don't go and buy that millions of customer data outright from the hackers. Wow. All right. So how do you minimize the risk of identity theft? Well, you need to guard your mail, guard personal items. If an institution sends you a credit card for you to activate and you don't want it, then you should not activate it. You should opt out and perhaps destroy that credit card. Monitor your credit card statements every month. Protect information, SSNs, personal data. Take security measures with respect to passwords in your home, your computer, and your smartphone, of course. Do not just allow your smartphone to be accessible without the minimum of some simple password. Waste disposal, be sensitive to what you put into your trash. Okay. In Australia, there are different crimes, acts, and statutes that protect consumers against identity theft. There is the Crimes Act, the Privacy Act, 1988, and various state and territory laws, which I won't go into detail, but just note that as a fraud investigator, if you are tasked with identifying identity theft, then you have to be aware of these different criminal acts. Of course, the textbook talks about the US equivalent, but I thought I would just show you the Australian equivalent here. There are even more statute laws under the Privacy Act, the Electronic Transactions Act 1999, and the National Consumer Credit Protection Act in 2009. And I should read this one out because it's just here. All right. This act provides provisions that limit consumer liability for fraudulent credit charges and establishes procedures for disputing billing errors. So that's why you should refrain from using debit cards, because if they are fraudulently used, you may not be able to get your money back. Better to use a credit card. If it's fraudulently used, you can get your money back. Wow. I hope there's something practical that's coming out of this week's chapter or this learning module. Once identity theft has occurred, of course, you need to contact your financial institution where your identity may have been used to establish a fraudulent account, or consider changing personal information or personal identification numbers, bank account cards, checks, and other personal identifying data. It's very important maybe to contact any one of these institutions that are set up in Australia to help give assistance to victims of identity theft. The last section in this part, I will turn to investment scams. And this is where in the textbook, they have the heading, other types of consumer scams. But I would like to say other types of consumer and investment scams. And we can go down this list of impersonating trusted organizations, impersonating family and friends, investment scams, job scams, product service scams, romance scams, extortion scams, unexpected money scams. We can go on forever in terms of the type of scams out there. But the most important area I want to bring to your attention is as follows, and that is the pyramid and Ponzi schemes. Because if you look over the last 2 decades, there are literally billions and billions of dollars being lost to Ponzi schemes. And I mentioned pyramid schemes here too, because both are illegal in most countries around the world. And so you're probably asking, well, what's the difference between a pyramid scheme just behind me here and shown in figure 15.3 of the textbook and a Ponzi scheme? We all know from our parents, they were involved in kind of direct marketing by having a Tupperware party where you invite all your friends around and the Tupperware distributor will come. That was a legitimate form of a pyramid scheme. It's kind of like direct marketing, where the aim to grow a pyramid scheme is to recruit more people to become a Tupperware representative, to become an Amway representative. A Ponzi scheme, on the other hand, is all about getting new money in, not necessarily new members, new money in, so that you can take some of that money and put it into the returns that you are promising to investors who are already in your Ponzi scheme. And because you are promising investors a return of 15%, 17%, when your investments are only earning 8%, 9%, 10%, you need this new money to make up that 6, 7, 8% difference. And that's what a Ponzi scheme is about. That's the difference. A pyramid scheme, we're trying to recruit new members. A Ponzi scheme, we need new investment money. In some ways, what we talked about in the previous learning module called lapping, okay, where a consumer accounts receivable makes a payment, you steal it. and then you wait for the next accounts receivable, the next sale, to make up for the money that you have stolen. And so you're always relying on future sales to actually replace the money that you have stolen in earlier periods. And they call that lapping in the organizational fraud context. But in the consumer investment fraud context, we just call it a Ponzi scheme. What about the top 10 Ponzi schemes in Australia? Let's not talk about the world. We know the biggest one in the world was the Bernie Madoff scheme, the $65 billion scheme. Like, that was a big one. In the end, the net losses after clawing back money was 18 billion, but that is still a lot of money. Okay. If you look at all of these schemes, the largest is only 2.5 billion, and that was the one in 2008. The third one on our list, the MFS Limited, Octavia. But if we look at some of the more recent ones, 2020, a famous one in the press a lot, an investigative journalism has looked at the Melissa Caddick scheme, where the second last one here, Melissa Caddick allegedly stole 23 million from investors, promising high returns and using falsified documents to show false investments. $23 million. The most recent one is the Hope Business and Wonderful World scams, over $1 million, where they targeted various communities, promising high returns through social media and app store ads. These are all Ponzi schemes. They rely on getting new money to help feed promises to old investors. Promises that are larger than what returns that you can legitimately make. So that brings us to the end of this learning module. The title of the chapter is called Consumer Fraud, but I took you through 4 elements. Those 4 elements are associated with scams, consumer fraud, identity theft, and investment fraud. And the reason why I want to show the difference is because you, as a fraud investigator, may need to refer to a different criminal or consumer protection statute to know what are the protections available to the victims. And also, depending on whether it's a scam, a consumer fraud, or investment fraud, and then the nature of the fraud will also direct you to the different origins of the scam. Is it ongoing over a longer period of time, as with a consumer fraud or an investment fraud? Or is it transitory, here today, gone tomorrow, in the case of a scam? Maybe you have been a victim of a scam or a consumer fraud or an investment fraud. Whether you have or have not, now you know the difference. Thank you for listening, and see you in the classroom. Bye for now.